Thank you for joining us. If you're outside, you can hear me. Come on in, grab a seat. Thank you for your patience as we begin. Before we start, I'd like to, Uncle Earl couldn't be with us today, so we invite Uncle Earl. Uncle Lawrence could not be with us today, and so we're asking Uncle Earl Kukahiko to please offer our pule before the start of our meeting.
Aloha. Let us bow our heads in prayer. Makanoa kamakua ameke keiki ameka uhane hemolele. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Almighty God, we humbly come before you to ask your blessing upon all of us tonight. We ask that you touch all of us from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet. We ask that you bless the words that come out of our mouth and the meditation of our heart. We ask that you give us patience so that we can come together cohesively for our town, for our rebuild. For all these things we ask in praise in Jesus' name. I mau aku kaloko mai kai o ka haku o Yesu Kristo. A me ke aloha o ke akua. A me ka launa po ana o ka uhane he molele me o ko a pau. Amen.
Mahalo, mahalo. We're going to go ahead and start tonight's meeting. I know some of you had heard that tonight's meeting was going to be at 5. That was a mistake by, I think, a media outlet. So if you came a little earlier, thank you for your patience. We always start at 5:30, and even today we didn't start at 5:30, so we'll keep getting better at it. But tonight's meeting, here we go. I just want to remind everyone, we're still in the first part of the year, a lot of things going on. We're rebuilding, we got a lot of programs in motion. There's always so much to contend with. So I just want to as always, our team wants to remind everyone there are resources available, and all of these slides are on our MauiRecovers.org website. So if you can't see it on the screen or you need to refer to it later, please go to MauiRecovers.org. But these resources are available, and these are the same that are made available to our team and our partners as well. So please take care of yourselves so that you can help take care of others. That is the most important thing we would like everyone to do. Last month, Hawaiian Electric was here. They offered some information. We just wanted to let you know that we have provided a couple of days that they can be at the Lahaina Gateway site. So please use these dates. There's a number up there. Is there a number? Oh, a QR code. Sorry. A QR code that takes you to the reservation area. Hawaiian Electric has your table here. You can take a flyer. It has information about how to reach them. These are for service requests. So please don't show up with your bill or anything. This is very specific for service requests so that we can help you get what you need when you get to that point. So by appointment, Tuesdays, and then there's walk-ins on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Appointment is Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We are hosting an open house, not this Saturday, next week Saturday, because we want to begin to share information about the transfer from the Oluwalu located temporary debris site. As we announced in, I don't know when, I think December, we got the land on the Central Maui site. So we're going to begin operations in a few months. It's going to be a very big operation. So we just want everyone to know that you can come next week Saturday on the 15th at 10:30 for an open house over at the Gateway site. We're going to have Army Corps of Engineers there, EPA, our team. We'll be there to help answer questions, but we'll be talking and sharing information about the traffic impacts, about what the transport will look like, what you can expect, how long it'll take. So please come. That won't be the only time we'll be talking about it, but we thought we should start sharing whatever information we can as our people start to plan. We have reached out to the community of Oluwalu, so I just want to reassure everyone that we are going to connect with Oluwalu community directly out of respect for them so that we can be there and help with any questions they have. This open house is for everybody to come. If you want to learn more, just drop in anytime between 10:30 and 1 o'clock. Not this Saturday, next week. So tonight, we have an interesting agenda. We're going to, of course, talk about how the debris clearing is going. Army Corps is doing a great job. We're almost there. And we're going to hear from Shane Agawa. I have to stop calling him your favorite department head because you got other department heads here. But I know he's one of West Maui, so I just want to always highlight that. We'll be sharing permitting updates and inspection information from 4 Leaf tonight, as well as our Office of Recovery will end tonight with information that affects shoreline commercial properties, talk a little bit about SMA exemptions as well. So our question and answer period, as you remember from the format before, will be specific to Office of Recovery, and then our teams are here. We made the signs as bright as we can. So if you need support from any of them, please go to their tables, because we do know that there are a lot of individual questions that need assistance. So rather than have you sit through a 2-3 hour period, we thought we'd go ahead and try that. So we're still trying that out. So coming up, we're doing an online webinar. Again, it's coming up on February 19th, and then you can go to mauirecovers.org to get information, get your, let them know you want to join, get the link, submit a question if you want. That gives our teams, time to prepare their answers. Our next in-person will be in March. It's always the first Wednesday, unless it's a holiday, and then we move it down. And then we're going to begin our public discussions about how we're spending the CDBG disaster community development block grant disaster recovery grant money. Wow, that was really long. I don't know how to say that often. But anyway, the federal money that they talked about last month, we're going to begin the community discussions about the spending plan. It's a very high-level plan, but at least that way we can have that. And as our team explained last month, that plan has already begun a foundation of information based on the past community engagement. Because it's important not to have you come to meeting after meeting after meeting, continuing to say the same thing. So we have a running start with all of that information that's in the long-term recovery plan, and then they're going to build off of that. So this is just part of that big process. So Mayor is not with us tonight. He's feeling a little under the weather, so we asked him to not share that with all of us, but he's recovering well. But we'll be hearing from our managing director a little bit later, Josiah Nishita, who'll be covering for him. And this evening, it's really important to know that each month we'll be able, through the Office of Recovery, start to share with you every single next step moving forward. Because, rebuilding Lahaina is a very complex thing, and that's why we changed the meeting format to give it more time and attention to the rebuild efforts. I'm going to turn this over to Councilmember, I know I saw her. Councilmember Tamara Palton.
Thank you. Aloha mai kako. Just an update from the legislative side. On Monday, we had a presentation going over the ending of the eviction moratorium for non-payment, which ended yesterday. So the mayor's emergency proclamation allowed for the eviction moratorium to end yesterday if you hadn't been keeping up with your rent. So the main takeaways from that, I think, is there is a 15-day window you can sign up for mediation with your landlord. And the purpose of the mediation is to come to some kind of agreement with a professional facilitator, that both sides can live with. And then it'll be drafted up as a contract. So I posted a lot of the information available on my social media, but the direct sites that you can go to for information is the website for Maui Mediation Services, as well as Maui Tenants Hui. And it's important to know that this is not the end if you are up to date in your rent. It's not a open, free-for-all ending of emergency proclamation where landlords can raise rents. It's just the end of the eviction moratorium if you are behind on your rent, and there's a special schedule. This right now, yesterday was for people that are 4 months or more behind. Next month it'll be 3 months, the following month 2 months, and then the following month 1 month. So I guess the takeaway is if you have the opportunity to become current on your rent, we're also trying to work together with Maui Mediation Services to put together a one-stop shop where you can go for financial resources to get that help. And we did reach out to the state if they can create kind of a checklist of how we go about ending eviction moratoriums, because this is similar to what happened during COVID as well. So we should be getting better, but it still seemed kind of last minute. Today, we talked about a little bit about deed restrictions and managed appreciation, and we have a plan moving forward for that. In my committee that I just came from, we took up Bill 105, which is the nonconformities bill, and I think that we made a lot of good progress. We're anticipating voting on that on next week. Tuesday is our recess meeting date. All the Maui County Council meetings are live stream on Facebook, so you can watch them. Yesterday, in the Great Committee, we got through about half of the nominations for boards and commissions. I think our recess date for that is Thursday morning to finish it off. And yesterday, we moved out of committee 1.5 million in carryover savings for the Maui Fair later this year in October, and it's posted in Granicus. If you go to mauicounty.us/agendas, that meeting details for BFED meeting February 4th, how the 1.5 million breakdown will be. So that's pretty much it for the legislative highlights for this past month. This is our first committee week of the new term, so there's that. Thank you.
Mahalo, Council Member. Before we bring up Dustin from, okay, thank you, Akaku. Before we bring up Dustin from Council for Native Hawaiian Advancements, I forgot to tell you that these tables have a lot of handouts, including information that you're going to hear from our Office of Recovery. So after the meeting, please make the rounds and pick up whatever information you need to take home. And I'm going to call up Dustin to start the next one, and I left the clicker over there. You see it? Okay. And while you're grabbing that, I do want to acknowledge and mahalo your State Representative, Ellie Cochran, for being here tonight. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Aloha, everybody. I'm here to just talk about our distribution center. We've had good turnout since we opened in 2023, but there's still a few people that don't know about it. We're located at Maui Marketplace right next to Seafood City at the old Lowe's. Open Monday through Friday by appointment only 10:30 to 4 o'clock. These are some of the supplies we have: baby supplies, toiletries, lots of used clothing, but we also have a lot of new shoes right now, work shoes and designer sandals if you're in need of that. Kitchen supplies, assorted furniture, mattresses, and household supplies. So for everybody moving into either their new builds or into a long-term rental, you're leaving direct lease, please feel free to stop by. I have a QR code over there that you can scan and make an appointment. Okay, to request your appointment, helpingmaui.org/distribution center. Again, I have a QR code over there. And we'll need your contact information, proof of impact, your FEMA number if you have one, or Red Cross if you're in Red Cross. Yep, and then once you're verified, we'll call you to make an appointment to come and pick up. The reason why we collect that information is to avoid duplication of services or benefits. Very important that we don't give you something that someone else already has. It seems invasive, but you gotta do what you gotta do for free stuff. We don't deliver, bring a truck. We've had people come in their Honda Civics to pick up a bed or a couch, so we will not deliver. They said keep it short. That is an artist rendering of things that we have. Yep, and that is the QR code. So come over there. I'm right on that corner. If you need help scheduling, I can help you out with that. Mahalo.
Thank you. CNHA, Dustin? Oh, you didn't cover this, but okay. But they're in Lahaina and Kahalui with different centers, so please make use of their services and appointments are necessary. I want to invite up Lieutenant Colonel. This is his first community meeting. Of course, Lieutenant Colonel Jones left. So I asked him to introduce himself too.
Aloha, good evening. I wanted to introduce myself, put a little bit of person behind the uniform. I appreciate Colonel Jones introduced me last month. I work in the Honolulu district on Oahu. I'm the deputy commander there for the Honolulu district. Married, got 3 little girls at home, 8, 6, and 3. Our oldest 2 go to Gus Webling Elementary. Absolutely love our time so far in Hawaii. We got on island right before the Lahaina fires. We've been working support to the response and recovery in the background with the district since it happened. I'm absolutely blessed and thrilled to be able to come and transition to support this mission as we close out some very key portions of the debris mission and get ready to transition to the next big push as we work through the piling mission and the TDS to PDS. So again, very excited to be here, be a part of the mission. But now to the big update. It's not as big as it used to be, but great news. So we are 147 of 148 commercial debris properties. We're continuing to work on the Lahaina store, expecting to be done with that by the end of February to close out our final commercial property. So, and I know Colonel Jones talked about this last time. That's a testament to the partnership in this room and the work done starting last October through now. So hats off to all of you and congratulations as we continue to work towards closing that out. John will talk a little bit about this later too, but so pilings, right? I brought up pilings. We're working towards the permitting. We're being very deliberate so that we remove the pilings, the 232 pilings that have been identified safely and in a manner that protects the environment as well. So we'll look to start that. I say April-ish because I can't give you a better date than ish, and we anticipate that taking approximately 3 months once we get started on that. And once we have a more detailed timeline, once we get through the acquisition side of that, we will provide that in this forum and obviously through the online community meetings. So mahalo for the opportunity to continue to provide updates on our mission, and I'm absolutely looking forward to continuing our partnership as we look to complete our mission here. So thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. I'm going to turn this over to Director Ogawa from Environmental Management.
Good evening, everybody. Shane Agawa, Director of Environmental Management. Good to see everybody again. So tonight I'm just going to give a quick update on wastewater activation of service, and then I'll go into an update of where we are with the Waiikuli sewer system that we're working on with EPA. So you folks are familiar with this diagram. We have the before and after. In the red here is the lots that did not have active sewer service. So this is the area a little bit mauka of Kuhua Camp, and it goes all the way up to the Kilauea, the older portion of Kilauea. So as you can see, every lot above the highway is now active with sewer service. Thank you. That was a huge task. We continue to show progress. This area, I just want to point out, a lot of this repairs was done by our in-house crew. We do have our contractor that are taking on the bigger jobs, like in the heart of Lahaina, the bigger lines. But our in-house crew, they put in a lot of hours to get this area open, so I give them a lot of credit. Thank you. Before I go on to the Waiikuli, just an update on the other areas that are still red. So what we call the commercial bubble, or we've been saying the black box from Kenui Street to Shaw. We are making great progress. Most of the interior repairs have been done, the center portion of that area. We still have some work on the northern side where Kenui Street meets front, and on the southern side by the Lahaina tennis courts in that area. We are still on schedule to have that whole area with active sewer service by the end of this month. And if things change, I'll let you know. But the latest schedule that I've seen from our contractor, end of this month, that whole area from Kinui to Shaw should have sewer service. The other remaining area that is still red is the last area of Wahikuli Terrace. The county portion, all the repairs are done. I mentioned this before. Army Corps still continues to do work on Malo Street along the train tracks. I checked with them, looked at the schedule. They still are on schedule to complete that so we can tie in by mid to end of April. So I would say by the end of April, all the sewer service should be restored to Lahaina, which is unbelievable. Now on to Wahikuli. So as we mentioned before, EPA partnered with the County of Maui. They stepped up, provided support. So I won't go through all this in detail, but just to give you an update on the design phase. So the first portion was they got a consultant on board, AECOM. And the first portion was the environmental permitting, which has already begun. And then the next portion is going to be, they're in the process of the historic, which is part of the environmental program. So the historic section 106 is in the works. The end product, what they're going to give to the county is a shovel-ready design, meaning the design will be complete, the environmental permitting will all be complete, and then it's on the county to take it to construction. EPA has identified 19 properties in Wahikuli. This is just to let you know, and I'll show in an upcoming slide which lots these will affect. They will be approaching certain residents in the Wahikuli area requesting a right of entry. And the right of entry is to provide access onto your property. These are properties that are affected with easements so that they can do some surveying to see if a sewer line can run through that easement. As we move forward, we'll continue to update the public. We'll have public engagement opportunities coming forward. We're going to wait until the design progresses so we can share some relevant information for you. Just a reminder, the lots with cesspools and septic systems, once the county sewer is installed and operational, you're going to get a letter from the Wastewater Reclamation Division. Upon the date of that letter, then you'll have 180 days to tie into the sewer system that's going to go in. So please keep in mind, during your rebuild, with these updates, we're going to try to pinpoint what side of your property the sewer line is going to be on. So if your cesspool or septic is in the backyard, please keep in mind to work with your contractor to prepare to tie in, possibly in the opposite direction. So you don't have to, do so much damage to your yard or your slab. Just keep that in mind when you rebuild. And we'll do our best to update you on where that sewer line is going to be so you can plan ahead. I know some of you are in the building process already. You should be getting notified by 4-leaf that where the sewer line is going to be, just letting you know that you're going to be required to tie in later. I've been approached by several people with septic systems. The question was, wow, I just put in a septic system that costs X amount of dollars. They want to get full value for their septic system. So if you do have a septic system and not a cesspool, there is something in the county code where you submit a letter of justification to our office, Environmental Management, and we have up to 5 years of extension before you need to tie into your sewer system. So when that time comes, if you have a septic system and you want to get a little bit longer use out of it before tying into the county system, then you can send in a letter of justification. This is what a lot of you was asking about. This is a general timeline of where we are with the Wahikuli sewer design. So right now we're in the spring. They're working on the draft EA, the environmental assessment. There's a public commentary period. And then we anticipate that surveying that I mentioned earlier to happen this year in the spring. Then in July of this year, we expect the completion of the environmental review. In August, we anticipate to have 30% design. Now, when we're at 30%, that should be enough information for us to come back to the community, the residents of Wahikuli, and get feedback. By then, we'll know pretty much sure where the lines are going to run, and then we can get feedback from a lot of you. In December of this year, we expect a 60% complete design. In February of next year, 90%. And in the spring, we expect the final package to be delivered to the County of Maui. And as I mentioned before, then we take over, try to get construction funding, and move it to the construction process. A lot of you seen this diagram before. This is just an example. Some of the lots that you see in green with the greenhouse, you're going to be able to gravity sewer to the sewer line, the new county sewer line. Some of the lots, the ones shown in red, you're lower than the sewer line that services your property. So those will be required to have a grinder pump system. It's a small pump, it's in your property, it grinds up the waste and it pumps it uphill into the sewer line. So keep in mind the colors. Green, you can gravity flow. Red, you're going to have to pump up. The colors here don't show very well, but these are a color schematic of the lots. So most of the lots are green. You see some in red. So if those are your lots, more than likely, you're going to be lower than the sewer line. And we can work with you to see how we can get the sewer up to the main and the street. The lots in yellow, if those are your lots, those are the lots that are going to be affected by an easement. You currently have an existing easement. I believe it's 15 foot wide. And that's what the right of entry that you're going to be receiving is going to allow us to go onto that easement, survey it. More than likely, the sewer line is going to run in that easement to service your lots. Now, what that means is those yellow lots ultimately are going to be green. You're not going to have to use a pump. You can gravity flow to the county sewer system that's within the easement. So keep in mind, there's a 15-foot easement in your yard. Looks like a lot of the backyards. So you're not allowed to build walls, sheds, that type of thing in that 15-foot easement. This is another diagram that you folks might have seen before. This is just an overhead view. Again, the color coding, the green homes, those are the ones that can gravity flow to the county sewer. The county sewer is the one shown schematically in orange. The yellow lot, as you can see, is one that will be serviced by an easement in your backyard, but you can still gravity flow to it. And the red house is a situation where we just can't gravity flow downhill, so you would need to pump up to the county system. And if you folks have any questions, you can come to our table after, and I can specifically answer any case-by-case questions you may have. So the construction phase, at this time, no funding has been secured. However, we are seeking different types of funding. It's going to cost a lot of money. As you can imagine, the ground is mostly rock in that area, so it's going to be very costly. So right now, the options for funding is the HUD CDBG DR funding, FEMA hazardous mitigation funding. We are working with the Department of Agriculture. We sent in a letter of request, I want to say about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, asking for funding for the construction portion. And we're also including the ask to fund people converting from their cesspool or septic to the county system. Normally, people would need to pay for the plumbing portion on their property, but in our ask, we're asking them to include that so the financial burden is not too great on homeowners. Yep, that's all I have. Thank you. I'll be on the table. You can ask me any questions.
Aloha, Regina Dela Cruz with Four Leaf from the Recovery Permit Center. I'm just going to give you a quick update, mostly about inspections, just some clarification and information. We'll talk office hours, status updates, inspections, and then owner-builder information. Just a reminder, our main office is in Kahului. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and then we're at the Lahaina Gateway in the afternoon. Status updates for permit numbers, Upcountry and Kula, we've got 6 permits issued, 1 completed, which is final occupancy, and 6 in review. We've got total permits issued, 264, 263 residential, 5 non-residential. And before I walked out the door today, we were at like 291. And total active in construction is 162 so it's about 50% of the permits we've issued are calling for inspections. So inspections, we're trying to give information and clarification just to clarify the process. Permits will need to be issued in order to request inspections. We get a lot of requests to come out and do inspections before the permit's issued. We've done some courtesy site inspections, but we really need to have the permits issued before we're out on site. Inspections should first be requested via maps or call the office if you can't schedule through maps. I know that we've had a lot of changes, and we were allowing phone calls, text messages, and a bunch of different ways to call for inspection, and we really need to get back to the process so that we can get the documentation correct. Let's see, four-leaf inspectors are not permitted to accept inspection requests anymore in the field or phone, so please call the office, please go through maps. Completed consolidated acknowledgement form is required for prior to plumbing and electrical inspection, and I'll show you an example of that on the next slide. And then just a reminder that only the authorized plumbing and electrical contacts can call for the electrical and plumbing inspection. So here's an example of the consolidated form, and I'll get to that. But we also want to remind owner builders, we know that the process is complicated and you don't always know when to call for inspections. So please give the office a call. Once you've had a couple of inspections, you'll start building relationships with our inspectors. You can call them directly. But if you don't know when to call for inspection, please just call, and then we'll help walk you through that. And again, back to please have your plumbing and electrical contractor call for the plumbing and electrical inspections. The county usually requires a building permit, a separate electrical permit, and a separate plumbing permit for residential. And for disaster permits, they've allowed us to consolidate. And in order to continue to do that, we really need the design professional, the electrician, and the plumber to be involved, the right signatures out in the site, and calling for the inspections. And then here's a list of all of the inspections. You can also call, and we're going to create a handout or put something online, but these are just every single inspection that should be called for a residential house. I won't go through them all, but it's plumbing, electrical. One note on framing is that the county only has one option for a framing inspection, and we actually need to be out there twice. So we want to make sure what we are doing is doing a partial approval for pre-shear and a partial approval for exterior shear. So just know that that framing is actually more than one inspection due to the way that MAPS is built. Plumbing, electrical, building, we've got rough-in, electrical service. If you guys think it'll be good to have handouts and get this online just so that you can reference, then we will do that. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Regina. Before we bring up John Smith and Aaron Wade, I am going to call up our managing director. He's our number 2 guy that runs a county. You've met him before, Josiah Nishita. Before I do that, right after that, they're going to take questions on their presentation with what they're talking about, and then we're going to invite you to all of our tables. You do notice that Maui Mediation table is empty. They could not come. They're inundated trying to work through landlord issues, but I just got a message. Please go to mauimediation.org to get information, including a sample of what the letter from your landlord should look like, if that is a situation for you. So mauimediation.org. So at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Josiah, our managing director for the County of Maui.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We really appreciate these meetings, being able to provide updates, as well as hearing from all of you on ways that we can improve and ways that we can continue to help. Regrettably, Mayor Bisson is unable to be here tonight. He is under the weather at the moment. He continues to share his love with all of you, but does not want to spread his love in that manner. So we appreciate him for thinking of all of us here tonight. We wanted to share some news. As the community, we continue to meet with the community, hear from all of you on needs and issues facing our community, our residents, our businesses. As our meetings will continue to progress throughout this year, we want to continue to provide that deliberate, thoughtful, and steady progress, updates, reports, as well as initiatives for you folks so that, in your own decision making and in your own situations, you can have some certainty and understand the process and the things that lie ahead. We are pleased. Mayors would like to announce that we do have a temporary suspension of the special management area rules for properties Mauka of Front Street within the wildfire impact zone. We were able to work with the governor's office on that temporary suspension. It was included in the governor's, I believe, 20th emergency proclamation that was just issued on February 4th. So, why is this so important? One of the things to consider, and we've relayed this at a variety of meetings, but really and truly our success measurement for our recovery outcomes is keeping our people at home and keeping our community together. So certainty, timeliness is really important for our community. And, we do want to take, as we've heard from so many community members and so many community meetings, continue to take thoughtful and deliberate approaches to that. By temporarily waiving these requirements, both residents and commercial owners Mauka of Front Street can help to rebuild faster. There's approximately 636 parcels affected. It's roughly about 533 residential parcels and about 103 commercial parcels. And this will help to expedite their rebuilding process, to balance the urgency that's needed as well as thoughtfulness behind how we go about this. And returning residents back to their homes is a part and a major part of keeping our people and our community together. But that also is a multi-pronged approach, which means that we also need economic recovery to occur to help provide, income and steady source of employment for our residents so that they can continue to live and raise their families here. So the streamlined process will also help commercial owners be able to get back as quickly as possible. There have been some property owners who have applied for the process that, given the new exemption, will be impacted by that. And big appreciation to our Department of Planning, who will be processing refunds for those properties. There are about 7 properties that are affected by that have applied that would be impacted by this exemption. And we will process refunds for those properties for their SMA applications. Before I turn it over to our recovery team for further updates and to get into a little bit more details, just wanted to express from Mayor Bisson just a sincere appreciation for continued community dialogue, insight, and participation into the process. And it's truly what sets us apart from so many communities is the continued collaboration and community spirit behind it. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to John and Aaron from our recovery office and our Deputy Managing Director.
Thank you, Josiah. Wow, this is a lot of content tonight, and we're going to throw more content on you. So thank you for your patience. How am I standing in the right place? Okay. I'm John Smith. I'm the recovery administrator for the county. This is day 36 on the job, and I think it's day 36 for you too, Aaron.
Yes, it is. Yeah, aloha.
So Aaron and I are going to tag team this presentation just to build on top of what Josiah just presented. So buckle up. We'll go through this relatively quickly, and then we'll take some questions. So let me start with I'll just go through the bullet points to reiterate what Josiah just said. So the SMA exemption in the burn zone, what does that mean? Well, basically that means properties Mauka or landward of Front Street outside of that erosion hazard line that you guys know all about will not need to apply for an SMA permit. It applies only to like for like, and it allows homeowners and commercial properties to rebuild faster. We think this will knock 6 months to a year off the process. Impact, we've already discussed 103 commercial and 533 residential. I want to note, though, that this doesn't just give a free pass to everyone. The historic preservation rules are still in place. The flood rules are still in place. All of the building permit stuff that Four Leaf just talked about, all still necessary, all still going to go through. We're just taking one of the things that's a really timely process off the table. And again, just to reiterate that Josiah said, those permit fees will be reimbursed. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to talk a little bit, and then I'm going to jump back in. Am I missing something?
I thought you might want to talk about the map.
The map. Okay.
This is what the estimate
Can you talk
is.
about it?
Sure,
Yeah.
I can talk about it. So essentially what's shown in blue is the areas that are no longer required to submit for the SMA permit. The areas in green, and even if you have a small piece of the property that's in green, you will still have to apply, but it's just the properties in green now that need to apply for the SMA permit. So it's pretty self-explanatory. But we did want to share the logic behind how we got to this decision so that you know this wasn't just sort of a spur-of-the-moment thought process. We have been thinking about this for quite a while, and there was a lot of context behind it. So the first piece of that is the evaluation of the infrastructure. So, of course, the County of Maui's responsibility is health and safety. Part of that comes down to environmental protection as well. And in thinking about that, our infrastructure does a big piece of maintaining environmental protection throughout the district. The key piece, I think you might need to click one more time, there it is. The main trunk lines run down Front Street for almost all of our infrastructure utilities. The next slide here shows all of the main lines that are under Front Street. And with the mayor's goal of bringing back the community in the most expeditious way we can, we realize this is not something that we can rebuild quickly. Even if we wanted, for resiliency reasons, to move all of this Mauka, it would take decades to do. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't plan for that now, because we should and we will. But to bring people back now, we need to protect this. So we made that decision, and then we had to really evaluate, well, what is actually at risk on Front Street? Are there portions of Front Street that we have to better understand that could be at risk? The first piece of this is to know that the Front Street railing and seawall was already in some disrepair, and in 2018, Public Works started a project in order to repair that. That was in for permits and was already ready to be rebuilt when the fire happened. That's going to move forward, but there's additional sections, and Colonel was talking about the pilings earlier, so you see the picture over here. This is kind of what it looks like right offshore today. Well, it's a little bit more cleaned up. The surface stuff is gone, but the structural debris is largely still there. And that is going to need to be removed and may indeed cause some additional some shoreline instability.
Yeah. And so when the Colonel says pilings, those are pilings,
Yep.
just so everybody knows. But yeah, those will be cleaned up, but they will be very carefully cleaned up to protect the environment and so that we don't undermine Front Street further.
And because these areas are sensitive, and the cleanup will have to kind of happen in a couple phases, where we'll complete the piling removal, then some additional stabilization will need to happen before any kind of final cleanup could take place. And so we realized we really need to talk to these Mackay side property owners about what needs to happen on those properties. And we have since reached out to them and offered them voluntary acquisition of the properties on the Mackay side. So the acquisition funds that are being targeted for this are open space and public access, so it would require those to be converted into public open space if the property owner does choose to participate. I am showing in the middle here the building you folks might have known. The historic name is Gulip. Some folks know it as the Furtado building. This is one of the few buildings that is still standing and was short embraced and stabilized. It's got a really interesting history. And you'll see there's just a little puka there at the corner of Market and Front where we allowed for that to continue to remain because we think we could stabilize behind that.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry, if we can go back. I just wanted to add one thing on this slide real quick, just for the community's benefit. You know, Aaron talked about funding sources and whatnot. You know, this county has applied to the state of Hawaii for hazard mitigation grant program funds for a voluntary buyout project. So the state receives roughly about $357 million for hazard mitigation funds as a result of the disaster. And one of the projects that we have submitted and we're hoping to receive favorable determination on is funding for property acquisition to be able to turn it into public space as well as protect critical infrastructure for our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Josiah.
Thanks, Josiah. Another piece that we've been looking at in terms of health and safety is connectivity through the district. And this is something we heard from you folks as well, being a priority. So we're looking at extending what is now Luakini. It doesn't have to be this alignment. And we are working with the property owners to determine what is the right alignment. So a parallel road to Front Street, giving additional access, evacuation, and then some Maukamakai connections as well. These are actually really big blocks. And it is important just from a walkability standpoint for everyday functionality to have the additional connections, but it's also going to function importantly during an emergency.
I'll just add too that this will be an important new road that will give us options to move those utilities we saw in the future.
Yes. Yep. And then finally, just thinking about the historic district and the historic nature of the neighborhood, there's really kind of three zones, and these represent what is currently zoned historic districts. So these are the areas that will require that additional review with a historic district permit. It kind of goes in sensitivity, the least sensitive to the most sensitive as you go north to south. Primarily, the area shown in yellow is privately owned. Those are almost all privately owned. The only standing building in that area right now is the old Lahaina store where Fleetwood's was. This will move forward almost entirely through the private sector and those property owners. The middle part that really focused on the operations of the harbor through time. So this area reflects the history of many eras of history in Lahaina. There are a number of standing buildings still here, and it's a complex combination of public, private, and nonprofit properties in here. A lot of public-private partnership is likely to happen in that area. And then as you move furthest to the south, that is the most sensitive area, or what is known in all the archaeological reports we read is the royal complex. This is where Moku'ula, Mokuhinia was. This is where a lot of the royal residences were. It does have the highest level of sensitivity, and it'll be moving forward as its own planning process. So we're going to invite you folks to be a part of that.
You know, Aaron, I'll just add that one thing to note on that area is that we are already, between the state and the county, we already have significant control of all of those parcels, and that's the shaded parcels that you see up there. And a couple of those parcels are also part of that program that we're asking for voluntary buyouts.
Thanks, John. And just finally, like to tie this all together, so, you know, where does this put us in the continuum of our planning efforts for rebuild? So we did complete late last year the long-term recovery plan, and this listed a series of projects that we then applied to a bunch of federal agencies to fund. And now we've gotten responses from a lot of those federal agencies, and it's time for the next round. So what we need to put together is the funding strategy. That's the CDBG DR action plan you're going to see coming out here shortly. Before we get to Lahaina Rebuild, we got to finalize our funding strategy, and we're going to ask you guys, just as Mahina mentioned, in the beginning of March, to check in with us on that. I'm calling it the funding strategy, but it's the CDBG DR action plan. We'll get that done. And then it'll be time to talk about design, relationships, parking, aesthetic, all of those kinds of things that are kind of the meaty, the how we get the rebuild done. We can talk about all of that later this summer.
That's great. So what we've just given you is the framework for how we get there. So we've got enough decision points made now that we can move into that next phase. We're really looking forward to working with you as that develops. And I always like to say I'm tracking the money, so
Yeah.
I think we have a good plan for how to get this done. And I hope that brings you some hope. I think that finishes our presentation. So we will take a few minutes for questions while we have Aaron and Josiah here, and then we'll dismiss you to the tables to get your specific questions asked. So where'd Mahina go? Oh, Jeremy. Okay.
Yes, Jeremy. Oh, he needs a mic.
So concerning you guys' plan for Front Street, SMA, all of that, I think one of the bigger questions involved, for me anyway, and for the community, the SMA area and the historical area, parking is the big issue, which in a residential area, so I'm going to give you guys an example. There's a cul-de-sac with 5 homes in my neighborhood, and it's planned for 48 bedrooms in a cul-de-sac. So if we don't plan, if Maui County does not plan and prepare for this issue, whether it's in the neighborhoods, the historical district, Front Street, the business district, you guys will run into this issue again, like Mill Camp and Kahua, if another disaster happens. And we guys are not planning right now. There is, the last time I talked to, who's the planning director? When I asked Kate these issues, her answer to every question I had was, that's not my department, that's not my department, that's not my department. So it shows me a lack of due diligence in the rebuild of our town. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'll start. So, planning is at the top of our list, and that's great input, Jeremy, as we get into CDBG-DR funding strategies for the kinds of projects that we'll be able to fund to help with parking. We know parking is a big issue. It's at the top of our mind, so we appreciate those comments. Thank you. I got to talk more into this thing. Okay, next question. We have one right down front here. I'm still learning. I'm not as good as Mahina is at this part of it.
Yeah, aloha. Thank you for this meeting. Maybe I'm missing something about the SMA where you're going on the Mackay side, that the permitting's still being done. And I see that you're going to be removing the pylons. I know that they put in new pylons for the harbor. Are you going to be replacing the pylons for the businesses that were on those pylons beforehand? And if not, why not?
Okay, so the pylon project is part of the debris removal process. So the pylons are considered damaged and unusable, so we're removing them for now. What happens on those parcels beyond that is between the property owner and the state, DLNR. Those properties had leases. They didn't actually own the land over the water. They had long-term leases with DLNR. So when the disaster happened, those leases were null and void primarily. So the negotiation on how that would go forward would be between the Department of Land Natural Resources, which is the state, and the property owner. But what we're saying as part of our buyback program is we're offering for the ones that are remaining in those areas to purchase them if they would like to engage in that process.
So they do have an opportunity to rebuild there eventually.
There is a path to rebuild, but it is a difficult path. I won't sugarcoat that. Thank you.
I just had a question about 505, what the plan is there.
505 is on the list of properties that we are engaging with the owner to purchase.
Okay, it seems marginally unsafe as it is now with the parking structure open and, you know, it's not unsafe, but it doesn't look particularly safe also.
Yeah, understood. Thank you. We can take a look at the current condition of it, but in general, that's a strategic parcel for what Aaron and I described earlier. Okay, on the right?
Hi.
Hi.
I heard that there was a refund for people that already paid their SMA permit fee, and I imagine also the same for people that paid their teacher or school impact fee. Do you know the process is? Because I get asked that, and I don't know the process is for people to get reimbursed those fees that future people don't have to pay because we figured it out.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I don't know if Four Leaf would know that either, but I know there is a process for that. Does somebody know? Oh, somebody knows.
Thank you for the question. On a list with the planning department. So the permit fee refund process is basically, not to get into the weeds, but it's entirely county end. We gather all the documentation, we gather the reason why, and we justify why this permit refund needs to be issued to our finance department. We work with our partners who are excellent at finance to ensure that that is handled appropriately and is well documented as to the reason why.
And does that go for the school impact fees also, or it's just the SMA permit fees?
We are only concerned with the SMA for the purposes of planning. Thank you. And thanks.
Thanks for that question. Okay, back in the back, we have a question.
Yes, I just moved back to Lahaina after the fire 2 weeks ago. And I've seen a lot of monster houses coming up in Wahikuli, and you're talking about building permits and all that kind of stuff. You know, this is crazy. You know, people are just taking advantage of a fire and making a monster house for themselves. So I don't know how you say you're going to restrict it or whatever, you know.
Yeah, so I would say that the areas that we talked about earlier are much more restrictive in terms of the historic character of the town, which Wahikuli is not in that, but I don't know if you guys want to comment or anybody wants to comment on. Noted. Thank you.
Going back to that 3-section picture that you had, so if we have property behind the harbor on Luakini and we have questions, who do we talk to as far as we are maybe in permitting, maybe not? I don't know. We have a plan that was submitted. Who are we talking to at this point?
If you're in there, you're in the permitting world, so you have to apply for a permit. But all we are saying tonight is that property wouldn't be in the SMA permit process. But you still have to go through the MAPS process. That's MAPPS. You still have to engage with the design consultant to do plans for you. And then as you engage in that process, you will be talking to multiple departments at the county. You'll be talking to the planning department for the zoning issues on that particular project. You'll be talking to Public Works for issues such as flooding. So it's a whole process that still exists that everybody still has to go through.
So we have already submitted with an architect and they submitted. So then is it up to us to find out more information, or when it's appropriate, then we will be contacted?
So you can track your permit online on the MAP system, so you can get a login to see exactly where it is in the process as the owner. Your architect has that same access, so you can track it electronically.
Right.
And if you have a hard time with that, In the afternoons, every afternoon during the weekdays, you can stop in at the recovery center and they can look up your permit and tell you exactly where you are in the process. And if it's stuck somewhere, they can help you explain that. And if you need to call your architect and say, hey, you need to finish that thing that they need to resubmit, that's where you would do that interaction.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a quick commercial break before we move to the next question. If you're driving a white Toyota 4Runner and you park blocking somebody's car, that teacher needs to leave. So if you have a white Toyota 4Runner and you park creatively and you block someone, please go move a little while so they can get out. Mahalo. Go ahead, John.
Kim Ball. Oh, man. Everybody knows Kim. Okay. Okay. Right back there. There's a couple back there, so go ahead.
Hi. My question kind of refers to the mega houses that are coming up and the parking of cars. They need to have most of the cars parked in their lot or in front of their house, not 4 or 5 houses down, because those houses don't have all that many cars.
Yeah.
So are you requiring people to park in their own lot? How are you doing that? Because I know when I have guests and they can't park, they've got to park 4 or 5 houses down because these mega houses have their extra cars parked by my house.
Yeah, I think all I can say right now is that we know that parking is a big issue, and we're going to take a closer look at it. There are solutions that we can enact in the future to deal with this parking issue, and those will come in future meetings. But thank you for the comment, and please keep bringing those comments.
Thank you for the opportunity. When you talk about the Mackay side of Front Street, I'd say the 800 block, the 700 block, the 600 block is all brownstone. That's all businesses. I hear some of them are on pilings. For example, Kimo's restaurant was on a slab. Is that going to happen? Will rebuilding come faster for them because they have no pilings? I mean, let me go further and say, the rumors for the last year have been there's going to be setbacks. What I think I'm hearing tonight is there's not going to be any setbacks. Front Street's going to remain where it is. A building will be allowed on the Malka side, and that means businesses on that side of the street. The penalty for having something on Front Street on the ocean side is that you are probably not going to be able to rebuild, or is it that we will be able to rebuild, but it's going to be years away?
Yeah. I think the latter is a fair assessment. The properties on the Mackay side are going to have a very hard time with the permitting process to become approved. So it's a multi-phased permitting approach, which actually primarily starts with Department of Land and Natural Resources because they have jurisdiction over the waters. And then what we are saying is we are making it easier for Front Street to come back. But not all the rules are gone. There are still requirements for Front Street to adhere to meet current building code. So, but essentially, we want Front Street to come back. We're protecting Front Street as a county. We have to because of the utilities. And so anything on the Malkuth side of Front Street is where we're saying, let's go.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, one more.
Hello. Just to, go back to like what these wonderful folks were talking about with the monster homes being built up. I live in like the Kilauea, Mauka area, and every time I go back to our property, it's like, wow, check out this big house. And we're finding out that some of them are like 9-bedroom homes, 12-bedroom homes. It's like, who is monitoring the on-site parking? Like, when they put their plan into permitting, does permitting like check out, okay, look, you have a 12-bedroom house. Where is the parking for this house? You know, I mean, you're saying that you're going to look at it later. Later is too late. They're going to be parking on the street just like before. And the emergency vehicles not going to be able to pass. You know, we're just going to be in the same situation like before. Who is going to monitor the on-site parking?
Thank you. So I can see that we're going to need to do a community meeting on parking. That's for sure. But thank you for the comment. I don't mean to make light of it. It's a serious issue. It wasn't something that we were prepared to talk about tonight, obviously, but we will get together with our teams that both review plans and administer parking code, et cetera. So we'll come back to you with a solution on parking. Okay.
I don't know who this question is for, but we live on Fleming and we're rebuilding. And since they've created the housing above, all above, a lot of the erosion, you want to talk about erosion control, I don't even know if that's the proper phrase for it, but when we had those rains last week, our whole street was like a river. There was rocks and debris, there's potholes that were never there before. The water was going into the property above ours. Thankfully, they had a retaining wall, but the water was going through their rock wall onto our property. Our house is set pretty high up, but we almost had water damage on our home that we're trying to rebuild that's not even finished. So is there something going to be done about that, like grass, something?
Yes. Yeah, so a lot of that, I mean, we did have a big rain. A lot of that came from above, from the work above. I understand that some remedial actions are being worked on and already in place right now so that that doesn't happen again. But we are aware of the issue. We're sorry you went through that. I actually was on the phone with Mike Tejada, as you guys know, and I think he was probably out there with you guys pumping water from Public Works. But we know about the issue. We're working with the state and FEMA to resolve the issue so that that doesn't happen again. That's all I can tell you right now. Just go ahead. Okay, so we've been at this for a while, and you guys have been sitting for a while. I thank you for your patience. Thank you for all of the constructive comments. We will take them to heart and get back to you. But we're going to go ahead and open it up to an open house session. So everybody that's at a table, wave your hand. Come on, guys. Everybody, I'm not the only one that has to talk. So you guys look around, find your table, come ask your questions. I'll be standing right up here to continue the conversation. Meeting adjourned.